Big races out at Prairie Meadows this weekend. I'm Gino Buccola alongside Ashley Mailloux with producer Lucia helping us out. We preview the Iowa Derby. This one's going to go on Saturday, race number 7 over at Prairie Meadows. But before we get into the race preview, we want to remind everyone of the big 4th of July sale right now over at shop.drf.com. 15% off almost everything in the DRF shop. Use that coupon July15 off. Past performances, handicapping products, and more. All the tools you need to succeed playing the races. Let's take a look at the field, Ashley, for the Iowa Derby. We did get some news from our colleague Marcus Hirsch that the 2 Big Trues is going to be out, I believe, cross-entered in this race and the Indiana Derby, which is also run on Saturday, and we'll be pointing to that one. If you're not following Marcus Hirsch on X, make sure you do so, because on days like Saturday where there's a bunch of horses cross-centered, he always does a really good job of letting you know where they're going to go, plans that he's heard. So it'll save you a little bit of time in some of your handicapping there. But Ashley, I think all eyes are going to be on Magnitude when you look at the Risen Star winner, who had run a 108 Beyer speed figure when he won the Risen Star. And at that point, he put himself right at the top of the 3-year-old division, but following that race, immediately he went to the sideline. So we never got a chance to see him run in the Louisiana Derby or in any of the Triple Crown races. And now he will make his return to the races right here in a softer spot in the Iowa Derby.
Yeah, he was going to have a lot of hype. I mean, sort of in various situations where people do their Derby top 5, whatever it be, he launched to the top with that performance. And then, as you mentioned, went to the sidelines. He was a huge price in there. It was a 28 Beyer speed figure point increase based on anything high that he had run in the past, which was an 80. But, the barn does well getting them ready to roll off the freshening. And I think in terms of when we start to think about the summer months, Gino, think about all the quote unquote non-Kentucky derbies, but you start thinking about Iowa, Indiana, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, all of these throughout. I think he's well spotted here. He gets a group that he's a little bit of a standout. I know Big Trez was originally entered here. Maybe that would have been a conversation looking to go elsewhere, but he's the main name.
Let's take a look at the pace projector here. And you were kind of pointing this out, Ashley. What's a little tricky with Magnitude is that he was so good in that race. Prior to that, it wasn't like he was a monster on Beyer speed figures, right? That was the one kind of outlier race that he really jumped up and improved. But with Magnitude, all 3 of his best races have been when he's been really close to the lead or on the front end. So I wonder if they're just going to try to get aggressive with him because it's worked out so well when they've had him right on the lead.
I think they have to. And you mentioned the Beyers weren't great, right? The 2 80s that he was able to run, one was basically a gate to wire win where he beat California Brito, who was on the trail for a bit. And then his second went pretty slow. He chased Built all the way around the racetrack and never got in front of him, right? Built was just much the best with the way the pace played out. So I think he has to go, but there are horses that I think could give him a little bit of pressure early. I think it's not really projected here. Why can't the 5, Mick Swagger be somewhat forward? He's only been a couple of lengths off of it. The pace last time out, they went, almost 46-4, just a tick below that. This is obviously going to adjust once the scratches come out and Big Trez is out. But, he'll be forward. I don't know if he makes the lead. He could.
Let's meet the field here for the Iowa Derby, $250,000 up for grabs. We start out with Authentic Gallop. The 2 Tries versus Stakes Company just been really overmatched, right? I think you can maybe be a little forgiving. You had a race, then followed by a race, a couple months off, but you just were hoping for a little bit more than what we saw in either of those stakes races, Ashley.
Yeah, and I remember, before the Virginia Derby, I thought it was maybe an intriguing horse to get a little bit of a piece, and he showed nothing. They took some time to regroup between March and May. I still would have liked to see more last time. I don't know. Crudo's got a big hype behind him, and the main players in there were Crudo and the 3rd place finisher Invictus, but he's still beaten by 15.25. I don't love that. I do think he could take a step forward, second off the freshening, but even now when I look at him, I think going into the Virginia Derby, you looked at the win at Oaklawn, you looked at the maiden score at Oaklawn, you thought there was something. It's a little inconsistent.
The number 2 will be running in the Indiana Derby. I was going Big Trues. I think you went Big Trez. So we'll see. I think you might be right on that one. Sometimes I get inside my own head. So we'll see. Whatever he's called, he's headed to Indiana and he'll be running in the Indiana Derby. It's My Birthday, Ashley, is next up. Stakes place runner. this guy has actually been gradually improving little by little. I remember when he was in the Sunland Derby thinking he was a little bit overmatched, and our colleague David Aragona thought that he had some ability, and he didn't really put it all together that day, but his last 2 races, he really has. This is a good performance from him, Ashley, in the Texas Derby, where he finishes second behind a horse named Instant Replay, who's actually going to be running in the Indiana Derby this weekend. And what's nice about It's My Birthday, his running style, where he kind of puts himself in the race, he can sit close, but he can also pass horses if need be. I thought this was a really solid effort from him here.
I think so too. You mentioned Instant Replay. Indiana Derby is going to be 4-1. Has the outside draw there. There's nothing to knock on him. He has to be forward, though. His 2 bad performances, I think he was further back. And I'm willing to think maybe the 7 Ace in the Lafayette, it didn't work out for him. So I don't have really a knock on him. I don't think he's going to, catch my eye more than a couple of others in here, but maybe he trips out. Maybe he gets a good trip close to it. I do like that he's at least shown a progression in his last 2. His numbers have improved.
Magnitude won the Risen Star with a 108 Beyer speed figure, but he was 43-1 that day going into the Risen Star. Generally, when you see horses that run speed figures like this, they're the horses who are favored going into those races, or the horses who you're watching, right? Sovereignty ran a 109 in the Belmont. Journalism ran a 108 2 weeks after Magnitude's 108 in the Risen Star. Journalism did that in the San Felipe. Those are the only 2 races where a horse has run as fast as this for the 3-year-olds all year. So even months later, Ashley, that 108 still sticks up. But when you only have one number that's that high, as you were pointing out, it's like 20 plus speed points higher than his other speed figures. So is that who he is now? Was that circumstance, everything coming together that day? I don't think we're going to see him show up with a 108 Beyer speed figure, but even if he's not that and he's something like in the 90s, that's probably good enough to win a race like this and set him up for a really nice second half of the year.
Yeah, there's so many factors. I mean, obviously he has run a 108. Does he do it again? I don't know. I don't think it's in this spot. He doesn't need to, I don't think necessarily. But obviously there are some concerns. He's been on the shelf for several months, right? Is he going to need a race? Is the race going to set up for him? When you look at the Risen Star, I think the crazy part is in terms of the 6 furlongs, they went 110.95. So just to tick off a 111, none of his races went 111, right?
Yeah.
That was the quickest he's ever seen 3/4, and he was on the lead, and he draws clear by almost 10. It's not like they made an equipment change. The main change that they made, they stretched him out, and he got Ben Curtis, and Ben Curtis rode him beautifully. But I don't know how you assess that. You look at the horses behind him in there, Chunk of Gold. We'll see him in the Indiana Derby. Several next out winners. Horses that we've seen already win this year. East Avenue. I mean, it was a good field. I just kind of look at the way he ran that race. It's a crazy race. And definitely recommend watching the replay. Can't knock him though. Like you said, Gino, he doesn't have to get a 108 to win here. Does he maybe need a race? Maybe, but I think it's tough to look past his resume so far. He's got a strong resume.
Yeah, and when you take out a horse who was probably going to be the second choice and one of his major contenders, it just makes the race and the spot a little easier for him too, with one of those big players coming out of the field. We move to McSwagger, who sat a really nice trip. He was behind 2 horses battling it out on the front end. I think we actually have a replay of his win in the Prairie Mile where he wins this race, and right to the outside, his rival Maverma actually finishes second in here. But Ashley, I mean, watching this race, from about 2 seconds into the race, you could just see, wow, this horse is getting a great setup because the 2 horses right in front of him were battling. He sat 2 lengths behind. But what I will say, and kind of counter my own point, he's the type of horse who puts himself in that place, right? He has that kind of running style where you can place him wherever you'd like. He'll sit and he'll finish a little bit. So I think he's very honest, and I can understand why you take a shot with him in the local race like this.
I was going to say, take a shot in your own backyard, right? Maybe it comes up a short field. You already know that there's going to be a scratch in here. So your field of 6 at best. There's nothing wrong with running if you don't think you can win, which you can win, right? But there's no harm in running if you're like, my horse can get second in here. That's a lot of money. I will say you can look at him when he goes. He looks like a pretty big horse, Gino, where it takes him a little bit to get going. He's not going to be this horse that you're going to see this like a sprinter acceleration. He just has a really big stride on him. Talk a little bit about it. I like the performance. I think the runner up, you have to like that performance as well. It was a very different trip.
And for Maverma, who we'll talk about next, I think you just need a little bit more pace to run at, because in his most recent races, they've dropped back. They've made one late run, but you were kind of hitting on it. There could be versions of this race where maybe you have Magnitude going. Authentic Gallop has that inside draw. They could try to get aggressive because that's where he's had some of his best races. You look to McSwagger, doesn't want to be too far out of it. It's My Birthday could be pressing. So if they go quick early, this is the horse probably in the whole field who will benefit most.
Yeah, and I think when you watch it, this horse was really far back at one point in that race and only, missed by 3 lengths. I thought it was a good performance. Was racing, at that point, right, without Lasix for the first time in a while, but has been fine off of Lasix in the past. And I think if they go quick early, he's going to have work to do, right? If they're going slow, he can be closer to it. Still would need a really big increase in sort of speed figures based on what we've seen so far. But, he ran just fine last time out. It was a good performance.
We round out the field with Mr. Omaha, who is an Oklahoma bred, and he's done all of his best work against Oklahoma breds. He finished 4th in the Texas Derby. Most recently, he was behind It's My Birthday in that replay we showed you a few moments ago. But I just need to see a little bit more from him facing open company, because in the spots when he's faced open company, he's seemed a little bit overmatched.
And I just don't know last time out why he was that far back. It's happened to him a handful of times, and sometimes you try to look. Was it just they went too quick early? They didn't really go that quick compared to some of his races. So I don't know if it was just kind of where he fell into a rhythm and they just let him get settled and then tried to run from there. It was a fine effort, but I think if you're looking at the Texas Derby, you're probably taking the runner up over him.
Yeah, and as we move to selections here, Ashley, I initially was looking towards, I'll say the 2. The big man down there towards the inside. I thought he was going to have an opportunity in here, but he was going to be rerouted now and heading to the Indiana Derby. So after that, I really couldn't get too cute or couldn't really find the value in here. For me, I stacked them with just Magnitude on top, 4, 3, 5, 7, and I think you have them the exact same way.
Yeah, I'm not really creative in here. I wanted to try to beat Magnitude, and we talked about reasons maybe you consider not using him as your top horse, especially if you're looking at the sequence, right? This is going to kick off their jackpot pick 5. If you're thinking about that, what that means, you probably are looking elsewhere maybe to go against Magnitude, but even the other multis, there's a pick 4 that starts in race 6. You need value. I think the horse, if you're looking to beat Magnitude, is probably the horse to the inside. But I just couldn't get there, right? I didn't have the guts to do it just based on what we've seen. And we talked about it, Gino. Magnitude doesn't need a 108 to beat this field. He has to be in shape. He has to be ready to roll. But I think his trainer knows what he's doing, and that's not going to be a huge concern.
And if you're playing on Friday night, following this, you have the grade 3 Cornhusker in race number 8. And then in race number 9, it's the Iowa Oak. So a really nice card on Saturday, July the 5th over at Prairie Meadows. Whoever you play, however you play them, we wish you the best of luck.